Maya Chen stepped off the military transport shuttle, her boots hitting Earth's soil for the first time in 3 years. The familiar gravity felt strange after months aboard starships and alien worlds. She carried a simple duffel bag containing everything she owned, while invisible scars from the Proxima War decorated her 17-year-old soul. The recruitment officer who had signed her up at 14 never mentioned how hard it would be to come home. "Maya!" Her mother's voice cracked across the landing pad. Sarah Chen looked older, grayer, with worry lines that hadn't existed before her daughter volunteered for the Colonial Defense Initiative. They embraced awkwardly, both unsure how to bridge the gap that 3 years of interstellar warfare had created. During the ride home, Maya stared out the car window at suburbia's peaceful monotony. Manicured lawns, white picket fences, and children playing in sprinklers seemed like scenes from another planet. Her mother chattered nervously about neighborhood gossip and how excited everyone was to have their local war hero returning. "The school is planning a special assembly in your honor," Sarah said, glancing at her daughter's reflection in the rearview mirror. "Principal Martinez thinks it would inspire the other students to hear about your experiences." Maya's jaw tightened. The last thing she wanted was to stand in front of teenagers and explain how she had watched her best friend die on Kepler 442b, or describe the sound alien plasma weapons made when they vaporized human flesh. "I just want to finish high school and move on," Maya replied quietly. Their house looked exactly the same, down to the faded welcome mat and her father's gardening tools scattered across the porch. Inside, family photos lined the hallway, including several new ones featuring Maya in her Colonial Defense uniform. She barely recognized the eager-faced 14-year-old who had posed for those early pictures. "Your room is just like you left it," her mother said, opening the door to reveal pink walls covered with boy band posters and academic achievement certificates. Maya stared at the shrine to her former self, feeling like an archaeologist discovering an extinct civilization. That evening, her parents invited the neighbors for a welcome-home barbecue. Maya sat in the backyard, mechanically eating hamburgers while adults peppered her with questions about the war effort and those alien creatures. She answered in military-approved sound bites, watching their faces light up with vicarious excitement. "It must have been so thrilling," Mrs. Henderson from next door gushed. "Like something out of a movie." Maya nodded politely, not mentioning that she still heard the screams of dying colonists in her sleep. The next morning, her mother drove her to Jefferson High School for enrollment. The building looked smaller than she remembered, filled with teenagers who seemed impossibly young and carefree. Students clustered around lockers, gossiping about weekend parties and social media drama, while Maya wondered if any of them had ever held a dying friend in their arms. Maya Chen, the guidance counselor, Mrs. Roberts, smiled warmly while reviewing her transcripts. "It's wonderful to have you back. I've arranged for you to take senior-level courses, and with your military training credits, you should graduate with your original class." Maya nodded, signing forms while listening to the ordinary sounds of teenage life echoing through the hallways. Locker doors slamming, friends laughing, teachers calling for attention. It felt like visiting a museum exhibit titled Normal American Adolescence. "There's just one small issue," Mrs. Roberts continued delicately. "Some of your classmates have expressed concerns about having a combat veteran in their classes. Nothing serious, just typical teenage anxiety about change." "What kind of concerns?" Maya asked. "Oh, you know how kids are. They've watched too many movies about soldiers with problems. I'm sure once they get to know you, everything will be fine." Maya's first class was American history with Mr. Patterson, a soft-spoken man who had taught at Jefferson High for 20 years. She took a seat in the back corner, noting the emergency exits and positioning herself with a clear view of the entire classroom. Old habits. "Today we're discussing the colonial expansion era," Mr. Patterson announced, pulling up a holographic display of the galaxy. Can anyone tell me why humanity began colonizing other star systems? Hands shot up around the room. Population pressure, one student offered. Economic opportunities, suggested another. Maya remained silent, remembering the real reasons she had learned during military briefings: resource depletion, political instability, and the discovery that humanity wasn't alone in the universe. The sanitized textbook version felt like a fairy tale. Maya, Mr. Patterson said gently, would you like to share your perspective? I imagine you have some unique insights. Every head turned toward her. Maya felt their stares like spotlights, 28 pairs of eyes expecting her to perform like a trained seal. She could tell them about the mining colonies on Rigel Prime, where families worked 18-hour shifts in toxic atmospheres. She could describe the terror in colonists' voices when Zarathan raiders attacked their settlements. The textbook covers it pretty well, she said instead. After class, whispers followed her down the hallway. That's the girl who fought aliens. I heard she killed like 100 of them. My dad says soldiers come back messed up. At lunch, Maya sat alone at a corner table, eating a sandwich while observing her classmates' social dynamics. The popular kids commanded the center tables, holding court over fashion trends and relationship drama. The athletes clustered near the windows, loudly reliving weekend games. Academic achievers huddled together, comparing test scores and college applications. Everyone seemed to belong somewhere except her. You're Maya Chen, right? A girl with purple-streaked hair slid into the opposite seat uninvited. I'm Zoe Martinez. My mom's the principal. Hi, Maya replied cautiously. So what's it really like? Fighting aliens, I mean. Was it like the movies? Maya studied Zoe's earnest face, searching for genuine curiosity rather than morbid fascination. No, she said finally. It wasn't like the movies. That's what I figured. Movies make everything seem glamorous. Zoe unwrapped her own sandwich. Want to sit with my friends? We're not the coolest kids, but we're not the worst either. For the first time since returning to Earth, Maya almost smiled. Sure. Zoe led her to a table occupied by 4 other students who seemed to represent every social group the cafeteria offered. There was Marcus, a tall basketball player with kind eyes, Lily, an artistic type with paint-stained fingers, David, whose thick glasses and NASA t-shirt marked him as the science enthusiast, and Emma, whose designer clothes suggested family wealth, but whose shy demeanor indicated she didn't quite fit with the popular crowd. Everyone meet Maya, Zoe announced. She's the one who's been fighting the good fight while we've been stressing about SATs. Is it true you can kill someone with your bare hands? David asked with scientific curiosity. David? Lily smacked his arm. You can't just ask people that. It's okay, Maya said. And yes, I can. But I'd rather not. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table until Marcus spoke up. That must be weird, coming back to all this after everything you've seen. Maya looked at him with surprise. Most people either treated her like a dangerous weapon or a traveling exhibition. But Marcus seemed to understand that she was simply a person trying to find her place. It is weird, she admitted. Everything here seems so trivial, Emma suggested quietly. Like everyone's worried about things that don't really matter? Yeah, Maya said. Exactly like that. The afternoon brought chemistry with Dr. Patel, where Maya found herself partnered with Brad Stevens, star quarterback and undisputed king of Jefferson High's social hierarchy. Brad possessed the kind of effortless confidence that came from 17 years of being told he was special. So you're the Army girl, he said while measuring chemicals for their experiment. That's pretty cool, I guess. Colonial Defense Corps, Maya corrected automatically. Right, whatever. Must be nice having college paid for and everything. Some of us actually have to work for our futures. Maya bit back her first 3 responses, all of which would have resulted in Brad requiring medical attention. Instead, she focused on their assignment, carefully mixing solutions while he provided running commentary about his weekend plans and football scholarship prospects. My dad says the whole alien war thing is mostly propaganda anyway, Brad continued. Like, how dangerous can they really be if we're winning? We're not winning, Maya said quietly, watching their mixture change colors. We're surviving. Same thing, right? Maya set down her beaker and looked at him directly. No, Brad, it's really not. Something in her tone made him pause. For just a moment, his casual arrogance flickered, and she saw genuine uncertainty underneath. Then the moment passed, and his confident smile returned. Well, anyway, he said, there's a party at Jessica's house this weekend. You should come. Might help you, you know. Readjust to normal life. Maya considered explaining that she had forgotten what normal felt like around the time she watched a Zarathan plasma cannon reduce an entire city block to molten glass. Instead, she simply nodded and returned to their experiment. The final bell rang at 3 o'clock, releasing students into the afternoon sunshine. Maya walked slowly toward the parking lot, observing her classmates' carefree interactions while feeling like an anthropologist studying an alien culture. Their biggest concerns seemed to revolve around homework assignments, social media posts, and weekend plans. She envied them. Maya! Her mother's car pulled up to the curb. How was your first day? Fine, Maya replied, sliding into the passenger seat. Just fine? Come on, tell me everything. Did you make any friends? How were your classes? Did anyone give you trouble? Maya watched teenagers streaming past their car, laughing and shouting to each other across the parking lot. A few pointed in her direction, whispering behind their hands. She caught fragments of their conversations. Killed aliens. Probably has PTSD. Looks normal enough. It was fine, Mom, she repeated. That evening, Maya sat on her bedroom floor with her old textbooks spread around her, trying to catch up on 3 years of missed education. Calculus problems and chemistry formulas felt surreal after tactical manuals and weapons maintenance guides. She had learned to calculate blast radiuses and trajectory angles, but apparently she had forgotten how to find the derivative of a polynomial function. Her phone buzzed with text messages from Zoe, sharing gossip about teachers and inviting her to study together. Maya stared at the screen, remembering the last time she had received personal messages. It had been from Tommy Rodriguez, her squad mate on Kepler 442b, sending jokes and photos right up until the day Zarathan raiders overran their position. She typed back a simple thanks and set the phone aside. Outside her window, the neighborhood settled into evening routines. Families ate dinner together, children played in backyards, and teenagers hung out on front porches. It was the kind of peaceful suburban scene that colonial defense recruitment posters used to illustrate what they were fighting to protect. Maya had believed in those posters once. At 14, she had genuinely thought she was going off to save humanity and make the galaxy safe for democracy. 3 years later, she understood that war was mostly about making impossible choices and living with the consequences. She opened her laptop and logged into the Colonial Defense Veterans Forum, one of the few places where she could communicate with people who understood her experiences. Tonight's discussion thread focused on reintegration challenges, filled with posts from former soldiers struggling to adapt to civilian life. Day 127 back home, wrote user SemperFI2387. Still checking every room for hostile contacts before I sit down. Wife thinks I'm paranoid. Anyone else having trouble sleeping? Posted Ranger Rick. Keep waking up thinking I hear plasma charges incoming. Maya typed her own message. First day back at high school. Feel like I'm visiting another planet. Does it get easier? Responses appeared quickly. Give it time. Find your tribe. Remember why you served. Stay strong, sister. The advice was well-intentioned, but didn't address her fundamental problem. She wasn't sure she belonged anywhere anymore. The military had given her purpose and identity, but now she felt caught between two worlds, fully belonging to neither. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. "Maya?" Her mother opened the door carefully. "I brought you some tea." "Thanks, Mom." Sarah Chen sat on the edge of the bed, studying her daughter with worried eyes. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right? If you're having trouble adjusting, we can find someone for you to speak with." "I'm fine," Maya said automatically. "Honey, you've been through things I can't even imagine. It's okay to need help processing them." Maya looked at her mother's kind, concerned face and felt the familiar weight of protecting civilians from ugly truths. How could she explain that she had learned to kill efficiently and without hesitation? How could she describe watching friends die or the smell of burning colonies? "Really, Mom, I just need time to catch up on schoolwork." Her mother hesitated, clearly wanting to say more, but finally nodded and kissed Maya's forehead. "I love you, sweetheart. I'm just so glad you're home safe." After her mother left, Maya returned to the Veterans Forum, reading stories from other former soldiers trying to rebuild their lives. Some had found success in college or careers, while others struggled with depression, substance abuse, or simply feeling disconnected from civilian society. She wondered which category she would eventually fall into. The next morning brought new challenges as word of her military service spread throughout Jefferson High. Some students approached her with genuine curiosity and respect, asking thoughtful questions about her experiences. Others treated her like a celebrity, requesting selfies and bragging to their friends about knowing a real war hero. The worst were those who seemed slightly afraid of her, giving her extra space in hallways and speaking in carefully modulated tones as if she might explode at any moment. "They'll get used to you," Zoe assured her during lunch. "People here just aren't used to anyone doing anything actually important." "Fighting aliens isn't the only important thing," Maya replied. "You guys have your own challenges." "Like what? Figuring out which Instagram filter makes us look less dead inside?" Despite herself, Maya laughed. "When you put it that way. See? You're already fitting in better. Pretty soon you'll be complaining about homework and obsessing over who's dating who like the rest of us." Maya doubted that, but she appreciated Zoe's attempts to make her feel normal. During the afternoon, she attended her first physical education class, where Coach Morrison had apparently decided to test the new students' capabilities. "Chen," he barked, "you're with Team A for volleyball. Let's see what military training teaches you about sports." Maya had learned many things during her service, but volleyball wasn't among them. She had trained in hand-to-hand combat, weapons proficiency, and tactical planning, none of which translated well to bumping a ball over a net. Her teammates quickly realized she was more hindrance than help. "It's okay," whispered Ashley, one of the more athletic girls. "Volleyball is weird. Nobody's good at it right away." Maya appreciated the encouragement, but felt embarrassed by her poor performance. In military training, she had excelled at every physical challenge, earning respect from drill instructors and fellow recruits. Here, she couldn't even serve the ball properly. After class, she approached Coach Morrison. "Is there anything else I could do instead of team sports? Maybe individual fitness activities?" He studied her thoughtfully. "You know what? I've been thinking about starting a self-defense club. Want to help me teach it?" Maya's first genuine smile since returning to Earth crossed her face. "I'd like that." The day ended with English literature, where Ms. Garcia assigned partners for analyzing poetry about war and peace. Maya found herself paired with Emma, the quiet girl from Zoe's lunch table who always dressed perfectly, but seemed uncomfortable with attention. "I hope you don't mind working with me," Emma said nervously. "I'm not very good at group projects." "Why not?" Emma shrugged. I just say the wrong things sometimes. Make people uncomfortable. Maya understood that feeling completely. What poem did you want to analyze? They settled on Wilfred Owen's Dulce et Decorum Est, a World War I piece about the harsh realities of combat. As they read through it together, Maya found herself appreciating Owen's brutal honesty about warfare's true nature. He really captures the disconnect between how civilians think about war and what it's actually like, Emma observed. This line about the old lie really hits hard. Maya looked at her with surprise. Most people her age seemed to view war through the lens of movies and video games, all heroic sacrifice and glorious victory. Emma appeared to understand that reality was far more complex. You get it, Maya said. My dad was in the Middle East conflicts before the colonial wars started, Emma explained. He doesn't talk about it much, but sometimes I catch him staring at nothing with this look on his face, like he's seeing something the rest of us can't. For the first time since returning home, Maya felt like someone might actually understand her experience. Not completely, but enough to have a real conversation. It's hard coming back, she admitted. Everything here seems so different from what I remember. Maybe you're the one who's different, Emma suggested gently. And that's not necessarily bad. You've learned things most people never will. Maya considered this perspective as they worked through their analysis. Perhaps her sense of displacement wasn't a flaw to be corrected, but simply a natural result of growth and experience. She had changed fundamentally during her service, gaining knowledge and perspective that couldn't be erased or ignored. The question was whether she could find a way to bridge the gap between who she had become and the world she was trying to rejoin. That evening, her father called from his business trip in Chicago. How's our returning hero doing? He asked cheerfully. I'm fine, Dad. Making friends? Catching up on schoolwork? Your mother says you're adjusting well. Maya glanced toward the kitchen, where her mother was preparing dinner while humming softly. Sarah Chen had been putting on a brave face, pretending everything was normal, but Maya could see the worry in her eyes and the careful way she avoided asking direct questions about the war. School's fine, Maya said. Different than I expected, but fine. That's my girl. I knew you'd figure it out. Chen family resilience, right? After dinner, Maya sat in her backyard, looking up at stars that now held personal meaning. Somewhere out there, beyond Earth's atmosphere, colonial settlements were still under threat from Zarathan raids. Her former squad mates were probably preparing for another deployment, cleaning weapons and reviewing tactical maps. She felt guilty about being safe at home while others continued fighting, but also relieved to be away from the constant danger and stress of military life. The contradiction troubled her. Her phone buzzed with a message from the Veterans Forum. User Marine Mom had responded to her earlier post. High school was the hardest part for me. Stick with it. Find ways to use your training to help others. Purpose helps with the transition. Maya thought about Coach Morrison's offer to help with a self-defense club. Maybe there were ways to make her military experience useful in civilian life without losing her identity in the process. As she headed inside to tackle her calculus homework, Maya realized that her first few days at Jefferson High had taught her something important. She didn't need to choose between her past and her future. She could be both the girl who had fought aliens and the student learning to navigate high school social dynamics. The integration wouldn't be easy, and she suspected there would be more challenges ahead. But for the first time since coming home, she felt like it might actually be possible to build a life that honored both aspects of her identity. Tomorrow would bring new tests, both academic and personal, but tonight she would focus on polynomial functions and poetry analysis, grateful for problems that could be solved with textbooks rather than tactical manuals. 2 weeks into her return to civilian life, Maya discovered that high school contained its own unique form of warfare. The enemy wasn't aliens with plasma weapons, but something far more insidious: social media and teenage cruelty. It started when someone posted a video of her first volleyball attempt, complete with mocking commentary about war heroes who can't even serve a ball. The clip went viral within the school's social network, accumulating hundreds of views and dozens of comments ranging from sympathetic to savage. "Maybe she should stick to killing aliens," wrote user HFY Brad22. "PTSD much? Girl looks ready to attack the net," added someone calling themselves Volleyball Queen. Maya discovered the video during lunch when Zoe showed her the screen with an apologetic grimace. "I'm sorry, some people are just jerks." Marcus leaned over to see. "That's messed up. Want me to talk to Brad? I can make him take it down." "Don't," Maya said quickly. "I can handle it." But handling it proved more complicated than she anticipated. By the end of the day, the video had spawned a series of memes featuring her face photoshopped onto various action movie scenes with captions like, "When you bring a gun to a volleyball fight," and "Maya Chen, destroyer of nets." Most were mean-spirited rather than malicious, but they reinforced her status as an outsider, something exotic to be mocked rather than understood. Maya had faced enemy fire without flinching, but teenage ridicule felt like a different kind of combat, one where her military training provided no advantage. That evening, she called her former squad leader, Sergeant Elena Rodriguez, who was currently stationed on Europa base. "Chen!" Elena's voice crackled through the communication link. "How's civilian life treating you?" "Like a complicated tactical situation with unclear objectives," Maya replied. Elena laughed. "Sounds about right. What's the problem?" Maya explained about the video and social media harassment. Elena listened without interruption, a skill that had made her an effective leader during their deployment. "You know what your mistake was?" Elena said finally. "What?" "Trying to fit in instead of standing out. These kids don't know what to do with someone like you, so they're trying to cut you down to size. Don't let them." "I'm not trying to be some kind of warrior princess, Elena. I just want to graduate and move on." "And you will. But first, you need to establish your position. Show them who you really are, not the version they've created in their heads." The next morning, Maya arrived at school with a new strategy. Instead of avoiding attention, she would control her narrative. During first period history class, when Mr. Patterson began discussing the colonial wars, she raised her hand. "Yes, Maya? I'd like to clarify something about the timeline you presented yesterday," she said, standing up. "The Battle of Kepler 442b wasn't a decisive victory, as the textbook suggests. It was a strategic withdrawal that saved about 3,000 civilian lives." The classroom fell silent. Maya continued, her voice steady and professional. "I was there. Our job wasn't to win territory, it was to buy time for evacuation ships. 27 soldiers died holding the spaceport long enough for families to escape." She sat down, ignoring the stares from her classmates. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat nervously. "Thank you for that perspective, Maya. Perhaps you'd be willing to share more about your experiences sometime, if you think it would be educational." Word of her classroom statement spread quickly. By lunch, students were looking at her differently, with a mixture of curiosity and respect rather than mockery. The video was still circulating, but conversations about it had changed tone. "Did you hear what she said in Patterson's class?" Maya overheard one girl telling her friend. "She actually fought in that battle." "My brother's at the Colonial Academy," another student mentioned. "He says Kepler 442b was insane, like suicide mission level dangerous." Zoe found Maya during lunch, grinning broadly. "Okay, that was brilliant. You basically just told everyone you're a certified badass without actually bragging about it." "I just corrected some misinformation," Maya said. "Right. And I'm sure it had nothing to do with people making fun of your volleyball skills. Maya almost smiled. Maybe a little. Her afternoon classes proceeded differently than usual. Students paid attention when she spoke. Teachers asked her opinions on historical events, and even the mocking comments on social media had largely stopped. She had shifted from being a target to being someone worthy of respect. But respect, she discovered, came with its own complications. "Maya!" Brad Stevens cornered her after chemistry class, his earlier dismissive attitude replaced by eager friendliness. "Hey, I wanted to apologize for some of the stuff people posted. That was wrong." "It's fine," Maya said, gathering her books. "No, really. I had no idea you were actually in real battles. That's incredible." His enthusiasm felt performative, like he was trying to associate himself with her newfound status. "You should totally come to Jessica's party this weekend. Everyone would love to meet you." Maya studied his face, recognizing the calculation behind his smile. Brad wanted to collect her like a trophy, proof of his own importance by association. She had seen the same expression on officers who tried to take credit for their subordinates' achievements. "I'll think about it," she said, walking away. During her final class of the day, physical education, Coach Morrison approached her with an excited expression. "Chen, I've got great news. Principal Martinez approved the self-defense club. We can start meeting next week." He handed her a sign-up sheet. "Think you can help me recruit some members?" Maya looked at the blank sheet and felt a spark of genuine enthusiasm. Teaching self-defense would give her a way to use her skills constructively while helping others. It was the first school activity that actually appealed to her. "Definitely," she said. "What did you have in mind for the curriculum?" "Basic situational awareness, escape techniques, simple strikes. Nothing too advanced, but enough to give kids confidence and maybe keep them safe." They spent the rest of the period planning the club's structure. Maya found herself energized by the project, grateful to have a goal beyond simply surviving high school social dynamics. That evening, she posted about the self-defense club on her social media accounts, carefully crafting the message to sound informative rather than intimidating. Within an hour, she had received dozens of responses from classmates expressing interest. Emma messaged her privately. "This sounds amazing. I've always wanted to learn self-defense, but was too intimidated by traditional martial arts classes." Zoe posted a public comment. "Sign me up. Time to learn how to be a badass." Even some unexpected responses appeared. Ashley, the athletic girl from volleyball, wrote, "My mom thinks this is a great idea. Can parents attend too?" Maya realized she might have found her niche at Jefferson High. Not as the weird war veteran or the academic achiever, but as someone who could teach valuable skills while building a community around shared learning. The weekend brought Jessica's party, which Maya decided to attend after Zoe's persistent encouragement. "You need to be social," Zoe argued. "Plus, it'll be good for you to see how normal teenagers act in their natural habitat." Jessica Morrison's house was exactly what Maya had expected. A sprawling suburban mansion with a perfectly manicured lawn and enough space to accommodate the seemingly entire junior and senior classes. Music thumped from hidden speakers while teenagers clustered around a pool, holding red cups and engaging in the complex social rituals of American adolescence. Maya felt like an anthropologist again, observing behaviors that seemed both familiar and alien. Groups formed and reformed based on invisible hierarchies, conversations shifted between profound philosophical discussions and meaningless gossip, and everyone seemed to be performing elaborate versions of themselves. "You made it!" Brad appeared at her elbow, slightly drunk and more confident than usual. "Come on, let me introduce you to everyone." He led her through the crowd like a tour guide, proudly presenting her to various social groups. "This is Maya, the girl I was telling you about. She's fought actual aliens." Maya endured the introductions with military patience, answering the same questions repeatedly while studying the social dynamics around her. She noticed how information flowed through the crowd, how alliances shifted based on perceived status, and how certain individuals seemed to control the group's emotional temperature. It reminded her of military unit dynamics, but with higher stakes placed on seemingly trivial matters. "So, what's it really like?" asked Jessica, the party's hostess and apparent social coordinator. "Killing aliens, I mean." The question hung in the air, causing nearby conversations to pause. Maya realized this was a test of some kind, though she wasn't sure what the correct answer might be. "It's not like the movies," she said simply. "It's mostly fear and confusion, and trying not to let your friends down." "But you must have killed some, right?" pressed Chad, one of Brad's football teammates. "I mean, that's what soldiers do." Maya felt the familiar weight of civilian expectations, the desire for war stories that confirmed their preconceptions about heroism and glory. She could tell them what they wanted to hear, or she could tell them the truth. "Yes," she said quietly, "but that's not what I remember most." "What do you remember?" Emma asked, appearing beside her with genuine curiosity rather than morbid fascination. Maya considered the question seriously. "I remember Tommy Rodriguez teaching me to play poker with MRE crackers as chips. I remember Sergeant Martinez singing Spanish lullabies when people couldn't sleep. I remember how quiet it got right before dawn on patrol." The group around her had grown larger, drawn by her unexpected honesty. Instead of exciting combat stories, she was describing the human moments that had sustained her through months of deployment. "That's not very exciting," Chad said with disappointment. "War isn't supposed to be exciting," Maya replied. "It's supposed to be necessary." Later, while getting some air on Jessica's back patio, Maya found herself in conversation with David, the science enthusiast from Zoe's lunch table. Unlike most of her classmates, he seemed genuinely interested in the technical aspects of her experience. "The plasma weapons the Zarathans use," he said. "How do they compare to our projectile systems in terms of effectiveness?" Maya appreciated his analytical approach. "Plasma has advantages in certain environments, but projectiles are more reliable and easier to maintain. Plus, plasma weapons generate heat signatures that make you easier to track." "That makes sense. What about their ships? The reports mention some kind of adaptive shielding technology." They discussed military technology for 20 minutes, with David asking thoughtful questions and Maya providing detailed technical explanations. It was the most comfortable conversation she'd had since returning to Earth, focused on facts rather than emotions or social positioning. "You should consider military engineering," she told him. "The Colonial Defense Corps needs people who understand both human and alien technologies." "Really? You think I'd be good at it?" "Definitely. You ask the right questions and think systematically about problems. That's exactly what we need." Their conversation was interrupted by Zoe, who had been circulating through the party with characteristic social efficiency. "Maya, you need to come see this," she said urgently. She led Maya back inside to where a crowd had gathered around someone's phone. On the screen was a news broadcast featuring grainy footage of a Zarathan attack on a mining colony in the Vega system. "The assault began at approximately 0300 local time," the reporter was saying. "Colonial Defense Forces are responding, but early reports suggest heavy casualties among civilian miners and their families." Maya watched the familiar chaos of combat footage, recognizing the distinctive flash of plasma weapons and the sound of human screaming. Around her, her classmates reacted with the mixture of fascination and horror that civilians always displayed when confronted with real violence. "This is happening right now," someone whispered. "How many people live on those mining colonies?" another asked. Maya knew the answers. She knew the layout of typical mining settlements, the defensive capabilities they possessed, and the likely casualty rates from this type of attack. She also knew that some of her former unit members were probably en route to provide assistance, if they weren't already engaged in combat. "Maya?" Zoe touched her arm gently. "You okay?" Maya realized she had been staring at the screen with the fixed intensity she had learned during tactical briefings. Around her, conversations had resumed, with students discussing the attack in the abstract terms of news consumers rather than people personally affected by the violence. "I should go," she said quietly. "Want me to drive you home?" "No, thanks. I need to walk." Maya left Jessica's party and walked through her neighborhood's peaceful streets, thinking about the miners on Vega Colony and the soldiers deploying to help them. Streetlights illuminated suburban tranquility, while light years away, human beings were fighting and dying in humanity's ongoing struggle for survival. The disconnect felt overwhelming. How was she supposed to care about high school social dynamics when real battles were happening in real time? How could she focus on calculus homework while people she had trained with were potentially in mortal danger? Her phone buzzed with a message from Elena. "Saw the Vega news. You holding up okay?" Maya typed back. "Weird being safe while others are fighting. Survivor's guilt is normal. You've earned your safety. Don't feel bad about it. How do you know when you've done enough? You don't. You just keep doing what you can where you are." Maya arrived home to find her parents waiting in the living room with concerned expressions. The news broadcast was playing on their television, showing the same footage she had seen at the party. "We saw the news," her mother said. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Maya said automatically. "Honey," her father said gently, "it's okay if this brings up difficult feelings. You don't have to pretend everything's normal." Maya looked at her parents' worried faces and realized they were trying to help in the only way they knew how. They couldn't understand her experience, but they could offer support and unconditional love. "I keep thinking about my friends who are still out there," she admitted. "It feels wrong to be safe while they're in danger." "You've done your part," her mother said firmly. "More than your part. You were 14 years old when you volunteered, Maya. You gave 3 years of your life to protect people like us." "Your job now is to be 17, her father added. "To finish school and figure out what you want to do next. You can't save everyone." Maya nodded, understanding their logic intellectually while struggling with it emotionally. She had spent 3 years in an environment where every action had immediate, life-or-death consequences. Adjusting to a world where her choices involved homework assignments and social relationships felt like learning to function with different physical laws. That night, she lay in bed listening to suburban silence while scrolling through updates from the Veterans Forum. Her former colleagues were sharing information about the Vega attack, offering support to anyone with friends in the affected units, and discussing the broader strategic implications of Zarathan expansion. User Ranger Rick posted, "Third major attack this month. They're getting bolder." "Command's calling up reserves," wrote Marine Mom. "Glad my tour's over, but worried about the kids still out there." Maya typed her own message. "Anyone know if the 47th Infantry is involved in the Vega response?" Several replies appeared quickly, but none had definitive information. The uncertainty gnawed at her, reminding her why she had preferred military life's clear structure and immediate feedback. In combat, you knew quickly whether your actions had succeeded or failed. In civilian life, everything felt ambiguous and delayed. She closed the forum and opened her calculus textbook, determined to focus on her immediate responsibilities. If Elena was right about doing what you could where you were, then her job was to excel at being a high school student while finding ways to contribute to something larger than herself. The self-defense club would be her contribution, she decided. Teaching other teenagers to protect themselves wouldn't end the war or save colonies, but it would prepare a few more people to face danger with confidence and skill. It wasn't much, but it was something. And perhaps that was enough for now. The next Monday brought the club's first meeting. Maya arrived at the gymnasium 30 minutes early to arrange equipment and review her lesson plan. Coach Morrison had provided basic mats and allowed her to borrow some training gear from the athletics department. Students began arriving at 3:30, filling the gym with nervous energy and excited chatter. Maya counted 23 participants, a mixture of grades and social groups she never would have expected to see together. Emma sat next to David, comparing notes in a worn notebook. Zoe arrived with Marcus, both wearing exercise clothes and determined expressions. Even Ashley from volleyball had convinced several of her friends to attend. "All right, everyone," Maya called out, using the command voice she had learned from Sergeant Martinez. The room fell silent instantly. "Welcome to Jefferson High's first self-defense club meeting." She began with basic principles: awareness, avoidance, and escape over confrontation. These weren't concepts she had learned in military training, but wisdom she had gained from veterans who had successfully transitioned to civilian life. "The goal isn't to become a fighter," she explained while demonstrating proper stance and movement. "It's to stay safe and help others stay safe. Most dangerous situations can be avoided entirely if you know what to look for." She taught them to scan their environment, to trust their instincts about uncomfortable situations, and to identify multiple exit routes from any space. These were habits that had kept her alive during deployment, adapted for the challenges teenagers might actually face. "Emma, come up here and help me demonstrate," Maya said after covering the basics. Emma approached nervously, clearly uncomfortable with the attention but determined to participate. Maya showed the group how to break free from various grabs, emphasizing leverage and movement over strength. "The key is to attack unexpected targets," Maya explained while Emma practiced the techniques. "Eyes, instep, solar plexus, areas where size doesn't matter much." By the end of the session, the entire group was practicing escape techniques with enthusiastic concentration. Maya circulated among them, offering corrections and encouragement while marveling at their eagerness to learn. "This is amazing," Zoe said during the cool-down period. "I actually feel like I could do something if someone bothered me." "You always could," Maya replied. "Now you just know how." After everyone left, Coach Morrison approached her with an approving nod. "That was impressive, Chen. You've got a real gift for teaching." "Thank you, sir. I've been thinking about expanding the program, maybe offering sessions for parents and community members too. Would you be interested in helping with that?" Maya felt a surge of excitement. "Absolutely." Walking home that afternoon, she reflected on how the day had exceeded her expectations. Teaching self-defense felt like a bridge between her military experience and civilian life, a way to use her skills constructively while building meaningful relationships. Her phone buzzed with messages from club members thanking her and asking about next week's session. For the first time since returning to Earth, Maya felt like she was making a positive difference in other people's lives. Maybe Elena was right. Maybe the key to successful reintegration wasn't choosing between her military identity and her civilian future, but finding ways to synthesize both into something new and valuable. The war would continue, colonies would face ongoing threats, and people she cared about would remain in danger. But here in Jefferson High's gymnasium, she could teach students to protect themselves and each other. She could build a community around shared learning and mutual support. It wasn't saving the galaxy, but it was saving something. And perhaps that was enough to build a life around. 3 months after returning to Jefferson High, Maya faced her greatest challenge yet, the annual Colonial Day Assembly, where she was scheduled to deliver a speech about her military service to the entire school. Principal Martinez had been planning the event since Maya's enrollment, describing it as an opportunity to honor our local hero and inspire student patriotism. Maya stood in the empty auditorium at 7 in the morning, staring at the podium where she would address 800 teenagers in just 2 hours. She had requested this early access to familiarize herself with the space, applying lessons learned from military briefings about terrain assessment and audience analysis. The auditorium was larger than she remembered, with stadium-style seating that would place her below most of her audience. The acoustics were good, but the lighting created shadows that would make it difficult to read crowd reactions. She made mental notes about microphone placement and exit routes, old habits that provided comfort in stressful situations. "Testing, testing," she said into the microphone, listening to her voice echo through empty seats. Her prepared remarks sat in her backpack, 5 pages of carefully crafted content that Principal Martinez had reviewed and approved. It was full of patriotic themes and inspiring messages about service and sacrifice, exactly what adults expected teenagers to hear about the colonial wars. It was also complete fiction. Maya had written what people wanted to hear rather than what they needed to know. The speech painted war as a noble endeavor where heroes fought clear battles against obvious enemies, protecting civilization through courage and determination. It was recruiting poster propaganda disguised as personal testimony. She pulled out the pages and read through them again, feeling increasingly uncomfortable with their dishonest optimism. These weren't her words or her truth, but sanitized sound bites designed to avoid difficult questions about the reality of interstellar conflict. "Maya?" Coach Morrison's voice echoed from the auditorium entrance. "You're here early." "Just getting familiar with the setup," she replied, walking up the aisle toward him. "Nervous about the speech?" "A little." Coach Morrison studied her expression with the perceptiveness that had made him an effective teacher. "Want to talk about it?" "Sometimes helps to practice with a friendly audience." Maya considered his offer. Coach Morrison was one of the few adults at Jefferson High who treated her like a person rather than a symbol, asking real questions and accepting honest answers without judgment. "It's not the public speaking," she said finally. "It's the content." "What do you mean?" "The speech they want me to give. It's not true." Coach Morrison gestured toward the front row seats, and they sat down together. "Explain." Maya handed him the prepared remarks. He read through them slowly, occasionally glancing at her with growing understanding. "This doesn't sound like you," he said when he finished, "because it's not me. It's what Principal Martinez thinks a war hero should sound like. What would you say if you could give your own speech?" Maya had been asking herself the same question for weeks. What did she actually want to tell her classmates about her military service? What truths were important enough to share, and which ones would only cause unnecessary pain? "I'd tell them that war isn't glorious," she said quietly. "That most of it is boring and terrifying at the same time. That the people who fight aren't heroes, just ordinary humans doing an extraordinary job because someone has to." "That sounds more honest than this," Coach Morrison said, tapping the prepared speech. "But it's not what they want to hear. Students are supposed to be inspired to serve their country and support the war effort. My actual experience doesn't exactly encourage recruitment." "Maybe that's exactly why they need to hear it." Maya looked at him with surprise. "You think I should tell them the truth?" "I think you should tell them your truth. Let them decide what to do with it." After Coach Morrison left, Maya remained in the auditorium for another hour, thinking about his advice while staring at the empty stage. She had spent 3 months learning to navigate high school's social complexities, finding her place among teenagers who had never faced life or death decisions. Now she had an opportunity to bridge that gap honestly, but honesty carried risks. Principal Martinez expected patriotic inspiration, parents wanted reassurance about their children's safety, and students needed heroes to admire rather than complicated human beings struggling with moral ambiguity. Maya pulled out her phone and called Elena, who answered after several rings with the background noise of a military base. "Chen, how's the civilian life treating you?" "I'm giving a speech about my service in 2 hours," Maya said, having some doubts about the approved content. "Official sanitized version?" "Exactly." Elena was quiet for a moment. You know what I learned about giving speeches to civilians? They can handle more truth than you think. It's the adults who want everything sugar-coated. What if I say the wrong thing? What if parents complain or the principal gets angry? Then you deal with those consequences, but at least you'll have told the truth. How many chances do you get to speak honestly to 800 people? After hanging up, Maya walked back to the podium and spread her notes across the lectern. She had 2 hours to decide between safety and honesty, between meeting expectations and sharing her actual experience. She thought about her classmates in the self-defense club, how eagerly they learned when presented with practical information rather than theoretical concepts. She remembered Emma's insightful questions about war poetry and David's technical curiosity about alien weapons. These students were capable of handling complex truths if presented thoughtfully. Maya began writing a new speech. At 10 o'clock, students filed into the auditorium with the subdued energy that marked mandatory school assemblies. Maya watched from backstage as her classmates settled into their seats, noting familiar faces scattered throughout the crowd. Zoe sat with their lunch table friends in the middle section, giving her an encouraging wave. Emma had chosen a seat near the back, probably to avoid attention. Even Brad Stevens was present, though he looked more interested in his phone than the upcoming presentation. Principal Martinez approached the podium to introduce her, delivering the prepared remarks about local heroes and community pride that Maya had heard him practice earlier. She only half listened, focusing instead on the new speech in her hands and the decision she was about to make. Please welcome Maya Chen, Jefferson High's own Colonial Defense Corps veteran. Maya walked onto the stage to polite applause, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at 800 expectant faces. The auditorium was quiet except for the usual shuffling and whispered conversations that accompanied any large gathering of teenagers. 3 years ago, I stood in this same auditorium for a recruitment presentation, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the sound system. A colonial defense officer told us about humanity's expansion to the stars and our mission to protect colonial settlements from alien threats. It sounded exciting and important. She paused, noting increased attention from students who had expected standard patriotic rhetoric. I volunteered that day because I believed in protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. I was 14 years old and absolutely certain that I understood what military service meant. Maya set down her prepared notes and spoke from memory, sharing the stories she had never told anyone outside the Veterans Forum. I learned quickly that war isn't like movies or video games. There are no clear victories, no perfect solutions, and no guarantee that good intentions lead to good outcomes. Most of military service is waiting, training, and dealing with equipment that breaks at the worst possible moments. Students were listening intently now, drawn by her unexpected honesty. She could see Principal Martinez in the wings, looking concerned about the direction of her presentation. The hardest part wasn't combat. It was making decisions without enough information while people depended on you to be right. It was losing friends and wondering if their deaths accomplished anything meaningful. It was coming home and trying to explain experiences that don't translate to civilian language. Maya looked directly at her classmates, many of whom were leaning forward in their seats. I'm not telling you this to discourage military service or to criticize the war effort. The Colonial Defense Corps needs dedicated people, and the threats we face are real. But I want you to understand what you're actually signing up for if you choose to serve. She described the reality of deployment, the mixture of boredom and terror, the bonds formed with fellow soldiers, the weight of responsibility for other people's lives. She talked about Tommy Rodriguez and his MRE poker games, about Sergeant Martinez and her Spanish lullabies, about the colonists they had evacuated from Kepler 442b. 27 soldiers died holding that spaceport, she said. Not because we were heroes, but because someone had to do the job and we happened to be there. That's what military service really means. Doing necessary work regardless of the personal cost. The auditorium was completely silent now. Even the usual background noise of teenage restlessness had stopped. Coming home has been almost as challenging as deployment. Everything here seems simultaneously familiar and foreign. You all worry about things that seem trivial to me, but I envy your ability to care about homework and social drama and weekend plans. Those concerns represent the normal life that people like me fight to protect. Maya saw Emma nodding slightly, understanding in her expression. Zoe was watching with rapt attention, and even Brad had put away his phone. If you're considering military service, do it for the right reasons, not for glory or excitement or college benefits, but because you genuinely want to contribute to something larger than yourself. Understand that you'll be changed by the experience in ways you can't predict. She paused, looking around the auditorium one final time. If you choose civilian paths, don't feel guilty about that decision. We need teachers and doctors and engineers and artists. We need people to build the society we're defending. Your contributions matter just as much as military service. Maya stepped back from the podium to complete silence. For a moment, she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. Then applause began. Scattered at first, but quickly building to something that felt genuine rather than obligatory. Students stood up, creating a wave of rising bodies that spread across the auditorium. Maya had expected polite response to approved talking points, but this felt like recognition of something deeper. They were applauding honesty rather than heroism. Principal Martinez approached the podium with a forced smile, clearly unsure how to respond to her unauthorized departure from the script. "Thank you, Maya, for that candid perspective," he said. "I'm sure we all appreciate your willingness to share your experiences." As students filed out of the auditorium, many approached the stage to speak with Maya directly. Some thanked her for her honesty, others asked specific questions about military life, and several mentioned that her speech had changed their thinking about their own future plans. "That was incredible," Zoe said when she reached the front. "You actually told us the truth instead of just inspiring propaganda." "I wasn't sure how you'd react," Maya admitted. "Are you kidding? That was the most real thing anyone's ever said at a school assembly." Emma waited until most other students had left before approaching. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for treating us like adults who can handle complex information." "You can," Maya replied. "All of you can." David lingered nearby, clearly wanting to ask questions but hesitant to interrupt. Maya gestured for him to join their conversation. "I've been thinking about what you said before about military engineering," he said. "Your speech made me realize I need to understand what I'd actually be signing up for." "Good," Maya said. "That's exactly the point." Principal Martinez found her after most students had departed, his expression carefully neutral. "That was quite different from what we discussed," he said. "Yes, it was. Some parents may have concerns about the message you delivered." Maya met his gaze steadily. "Then they should talk to me about it. I'm willing to explain my reasoning to anyone who asks." Principal Martinez studied her for a moment, clearly wrestling with administrative concerns and personal convictions. "You know what?" he said finally. "I think you gave them exactly what they needed to hear." That afternoon, Maya's phone buzzed continuously with messages from classmates, parents, and even some teachers responding to her speech. Most were positive, praising her honesty and maturity. A few were critical, expressing concern that she had discouraged patriotism or military recruitment. Elena called during dinner. "Heard you went off script today. How did you find out so fast? One of your classmates posted video clips online. It's already spreading through veteran networks. People are impressed." "I was worried I said too much." "You said exactly enough. Kids that age need to hear from someone who's been there and come back. You gave them something to think about beyond recruiting posters and action movies. That evening, Maya attended the Self-Defense Club's weekly meeting to find their usual group expanded by a dozen new members. Apparently, her speech had convinced additional students that learning practical safety skills was worthwhile. "All right," she announced after everyone had warmed up, "tonight we're going to work on de-escalation techniques. Sometimes the best self-defense is knowing how to avoid fights entirely." She taught them to recognize aggressive body language, to position themselves safely during confrontations, and to use verbal tactics that reduced rather than increased tension. These were lessons learned from checkpoint duty and civilian protection missions, adapted for teenagers who might face bullying or peer pressure rather than enemy combatants. "The goal is always to get home safely," she explained while demonstrating proper positioning. "Your ego isn't worth your safety, and winning a fight doesn't help if you get hurt in the process." After the session, Zoe approached her with a thoughtful expression. "You know what I realized today? You've been teaching us about war and peace all along, just in different ways." "What do you mean?" "Your speech was about the reality of conflict, and this club is about avoiding unnecessary conflict. Both are about making informed decisions and taking care of each other." Maya considered this perspective while cleaning up equipment. Perhaps her role at Jefferson High was evolving beyond simply being a former soldier trying to readjust. She was becoming someone who helped bridge the gap between civilian safety and military necessity, teaching practical skills while sharing hard-won wisdom. The next few weeks brought unexpected consequences from her assembly speech. Several parents requested meetings to discuss their children's career plans, asking for Maya's perspective on military service versus civilian alternatives. College recruiters began contacting her about speaking at other schools. Most surprisingly, the Colonial Defense Corps reached out to ask if she would be interested in serving as a recruitment consultant, helping them present more realistic expectations to potential volunteers. "They want me to help make recruitment more honest," she told her parents over dinner. "Apparently, too many volunteers are dropping out during training because they had unrealistic expectations." "Would you want to do something like that?" her mother asked. Maya thought about the question seriously. Working with recruitment would allow her to influence how the military presented itself to young people, potentially preventing others from experiencing the shock and disappointment that came from being misled about military realities. "Maybe," she said. "It would be a way to serve without deploying again." Her father nodded approvingly. "Sounds like you're finding ways to use your experiences constructively." As spring semester progressed, Maya settled into a routine that balanced academic responsibilities with her growing role as Jefferson High's unofficial expert on practical life skills. The Self-Defense Club had evolved into something more comprehensive, addressing not just physical safety but emotional resilience and decision-making under pressure. She had also begun tutoring students in current events and political science, helping them analyze news coverage of the colonial wars with the critical thinking skills she had developed during her service. Many of her classmates had been passive consumers of war reporting until Maya taught them to ask better questions about sources, motivations, and missing information. "Why don't we ever see Zarathan perspectives in news coverage?" Emma asked during one of their study sessions. "Because we don't really understand their motivations yet," Maya replied. "Most of what we know comes from combat encounters rather than diplomatic contact. That seems like a pretty big gap in our knowledge if we're fighting a war against them." "It is. That's one of the reasons why this conflict is so complicated." These conversations reinforced Maya's growing conviction that her real value lay in education rather than combat. She could teach critical thinking, share practical skills, and help others make informed decisions about their futures. It was a different kind of service, but potentially just as important as her military deployment. As graduation approached, Maya found herself looking forward to the future for the first time since returning home. She had been accepted to several colleges with strong programs in international relations and education. Her plan was to study conflict resolution and eventually work in diplomatic or humanitarian roles that utilized both her military experience and her civilian skills. "You've really figured it out, haven't you?" Zoe said as they walked through the hallways after their final self-defense club meeting of the year. "Figured what out?" "How to be both versions of yourself, the soldier and the student." Maya considered this observation. Over the past months, she had stopped trying to choose between her military identity and her civilian future. Instead, she had learned to synthesize both into something new and uniquely valuable. "I guess I realized I don't have to pick sides," she said. "I can use everything I've learned to help other people make better decisions." That evening, she sat in her backyard looking up at stars that no longer filled her with anxiety about friends in danger. She still worried about the ongoing war and the people still fighting it, but she had found peace with her own role in the larger story. Maya had returned from battle to face a different kind of challenge, one without clear enemies or obvious objectives. High school had tested her patience, adaptability, and sense of purpose in ways that combat never had. But she had emerged with a clearer understanding of her values and her goals. The girl who had volunteered at 14 to fight aliens had returned as a young woman who understood that the most important battles were often fought with words, education, and the patient work of building understanding between different perspectives. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as she prepared to leave Jefferson High and begin college. But tonight, she was content to sit under peaceful stars, grateful for the journey that had brought her home, and excited about the journey still to come. The war would continue, colonies would need protection, and young people would face difficult decisions about service and sacrifice. But Maya had found her own way to contribute to the fight, by teaching others to think critically, protect themselves, and make informed choices about their futures. It wasn't the heroic destiny she had imagined at 14, but it was something better. A meaningful life built on honest service to her community. And perhaps that was the most human response of all to an uncertain universe.